Start to exhale a little bit, ground a little bit. So all the I am pretty confident that everybody on the call has had a lot of um hard things happen, right? And I don't want you to visit them the way your mind usually visits them. Um, there's a line that I still like that from Resmond Menicum. He was like a guy that he wrote a book, My Grandmother's Hands, right before the George Floyd stuff. And then he got more notoriety after. But he's a somatic psychologist, and he would start every one of his sessions as let's just sit for a second and acknowledge something happened, which is because what one of his points was that our culture when it comes to systemic racism just needs to get a level of process that starts to include the nervous system, not the mind judging what happened. I think there's a lot of wisdom to letting hard experiences be present without the mind trying to think of them all, but you just allow in the emptiness that something happened. Something's been happening. And I like that Michael's getting some grub, just so you know. I hope it's good food, right? Um, so I think about that, like not only just my, rushing this morning, but I've been obviously writing a book where I'm in another revision, and I'm sharing a little bit more of my story. So I've been present with it more, and parts of it anyway, the core of it. Yeah, and so it's funny. Does anyone in a wheelchair, I still get surprised at how my shadow looks sometimes. It's like, oh my God, that thing, I'm in a wheelchair all the time. Like that's been 45 years, but it still surprises me, right? And I find myself, 45 years later, um, coming up on 46, um, still kind of like, wait, something happened. Whole bunch of things were traversed to get here, and I don't have to think about them all. So in this centering, yeah, your life's been not the most difficult role, maybe your whole life, maybe for a certain amount of time more. And what's wonderful about Mind Body Solutions for me is that we're not here just to feel sorry for each other, but we're not afraid if it's acknowledged, right? So something happened. Let it be true. Don't spin any stories. Soften your jaw on the inside of your mouth. It's hard to remind the nervous system that you already survived it. It's already happened. You made it. Your mind has a hard time with stuff like that. Two, gonna start to feel lighter now. Do some things to aid that, like balance my head over my neck, or open to the whole room. Gently lift my chest. Bring your hands into prayer if you want. Find your midline. That midline can rise. You can stay grounded. You can broaden into space. Feel your feet on the floor. All these things await you. The mind wanders, of course. Your midline doesn't. It doesn't wander. Good. And then release. Take your sternum up towards your chin down over your sternum. Make the inward connections a little more cohesive as the spine more projects outside of you through the sternum. Let the spine lead as your chin drops your mind in your brain in humility. Trust that your life force is more in your spine than in your head. Believe it. It's true. Raise your head up with closed eyes. Open your eyes. Have you noticed that a lot of advantages come from having a mind? But have you noticed like a lot of the disadvantages? Right? There are a lot of them. It's an amazing organ or whatever you want to call it, right? But I don't think very often, like you see a lot of animals, let's say, worrying about an election or worrying about the future, writing their last will and testament, or worry about the party next week, or they got to do laundry. I mean, I don't think they're, although I do think, watching dogs miss their main person, there are some projections towards the future, like, but they forget after a while. They feel the abandonment, but they're good until it comes home, and then they're excited again because they trust that patterns will come back. But there's a lot of things about this miraculous thing. And isn't it kind of a relief that it's not your most alive part? I find that a relief, for God's sakes, like a big one. It's like, oh, you mean this part doesn't have to be in charge? So start moving around a little bit, but stay like extra emphasis on your spine, right? So sometimes I like practicing, and just so you know, there in my book, there's a lot of skeleton jokes. I tell all these skeleton jokes throughout the book to remind both me and the reader to like not be so serious. But a lot of times I sometimes imagine my movements as just a skeleton doing the movements, but that the spine is like in neon green or something, right? So like the one part of it. Now I've even taught that where I have people do sun salutations. Where I say, now do these sun salutations like with your spine. Just try, let your spine be neon green and just like think about the different positions of your spine, right? The different ways. It's like, just think how patient your spine is with your freaking mind. Your mind's oscillations, right? It's like, oh, for God's sakes. Here it is again. Mine's got all these worries, and every once in a while the worries are founded, but mostly they're not, right? Mostly they don't really work. And so what's powerful about acknowledging that something happened or that your life has actually been hard, and if you can let that start to keep opening, if you can let a truth like that be true without having your mind to have to go racing to make you feel extra bad, right? Sometimes you have to do that work, like to go through all the ways that you feel shitty, right? Sometimes that's useful. Sometimes it's helpful. A lot of times people get stuck there, right? And so something like acknowledging that something happened in a way that includes your nervous system, right? Is like, it's really smart, right? So sit still again, make yourself feel a little dynamic. Like, so I lift my chest a little bit. I do some yoga stuff to make myself feel a little bit more dynamic. And then I'm gonna, I always laugh at truths like this. My life has actually, my body's survived my entire life. Like the whole one. I'm just gonna sit here and smile about that. That actually my mind's gone to sleep a lot. My body stayed on the job, kept beating the heart, kept doing the stuff, moving the blood, right? It's been here for my entire life. My mind hasn't been, right? And isn't it funny how human beings identify their identity so much with their minds? Even though it's the one that gets into the skullduggery. I can't say the word. Skullduggery, right? And I'm moving my spine back and forth now. I'm like back bending, and I'm going to try to add rhythm to the movement, right? So now I'm doing kind of mini cat cows, right? And I'm going like, wait, I can actually, if I let my mind be involved without my mind dominating, I can make these movements rhythmic. Now I'm going to come forward and go up, right? And I'm thinking about my spine as neon green. It's funny because as I'm paying more attention to my spine, I'm noticing how tight I am on the right side of my spine. And I could tell a story about that. Go back up. Oh, right. Should I go? My life is so hard, and my right side has to overwork, and it's just. And then I can go, my life just happened, right? That happens, and my body figures it out. Inhale, take your right arm up. Exhale, take it over to the side. So I've got that lump of clay on my right side, a little bit of my spine, so I'm twisting it a little bit. So I work twisting because I want to get that loose a little bit, right? Inhale, lift up, exhale, revolve. But I don't want to be frustrated with the price that my body had to pay in order for me to survive. So I'm not mad at the tightness. I'm not feeling victimized by the tightness. The tightness allowed me to survive back to center. It's the price my body paid to get me through the thing that happens to the moment today, right? I am not the victim of my tightness. which is hard for me to acknowledge because I've been in a lot more pain in my body for a while. Inhale, lift up, exhale, revolve, I'm going the other way. And I'm watching the places that are extra tight. And I'm going like, oh, my mind might feel victimized by the tightness, right? So I've got to massage it with a more truthful story, right? I'm not a victim of that tightness. That's the price my body paid, right? So I'm going to lengthen my spine. Again, we're just trying to help the knee. There's compression in your spine. So I'm leaning forward and put my hands on the table, my forearms on the table. You can do it on your thighs, right? But I want you to lengthen your spine, like actively. So hitting down through your sitting bones. And I'm using the table to pull back towards my body so my spine projects longer, right? Because I want to get traction. So my spine's been grappling with the compression of gravity. And now I'm going to use my breath, and whatever little bit of length I got in my vertebrae, I'm going to breathe, try to direct my breath to like dig out the minors, the vertebrae that got stuck there in the compression, in the collapse of the tunnel. Right. So now I'm breathing into different parts of my spine. And I can tell there's a place in my mid back that's the most compressed. That's also the place where the muscles were. So I'm going to go below it. And I'm going to try to like make those spaces below it lengthen, breathe into it, and then let the most tight spot get breath. Lift my chest and I'll make sure I'm breathing in between my shoulder blades. So my next breaths are actually more synced up with with as many sections of my spine as possible. That helps. Okay. And then release. So now lift up a little bit. All right, get that kind of traction, that kind of lightness. So you take weight off, you let your butt hang, even though you're taking weight this way, right? You're trying to let yourself hang a little bit. Again, creating the sensation of some lightness. And I gotta train my ear to hear the change in sensation. So I'm trying to lift both ways. I use my hands differently. And one way it hurts way more on my forearm. I could be sad about that. So I'm having, and I share it with you my story because I know that your bodies all have your own stories right now, right? And so I'm like thinking, oh boy, the nerves through my right arm, man, they're the ones in the battle more, right? All right. Again, because we're trying to make the spine be the center more. I'm coming more forward now, right? And lengthening and lifting my sternum. So there's a little back bend here. Now I'm going to go back to thinking about life without music would be a mistake. If I just grind to get more back bend, I've let go of all the rhythm of it, right? So I want the way to get through this stuckness to have more grace, more rhythm. So I'm like lifting up and then letting go, right? And watching the flow between the cow part and the cat, or the cat part and the cow part, right? Like I'm going back and forth, paying attention to the changes between the convex and the concave, and trying to let the movements be continuous between them. without winning, without thinking, oh, I gotta go farther, or else I'm not a good yoga student. Or if I don't push in, it's also the case that if you don't test your boundary a little bit, you're not being a good yoga student either. So somehow there's a place in between, right? So I'm going back and forth. Now I'm going to let my actions get a little bigger. I'm going to go back over my chair. I don't know about you, but my spine's getting happier, right? Going forward. So I'm thinking about this as part of a sun salutation. Forward, up, open, right? Now I'm going to pay attention to how I'm coming through and changing gravity as I come forward. So I'm not just throwing that away. I'm coming through. I'm making it rhythmic, right? I'm not just controlling it. I'm trying to make it rhythmic as a form of integration. Come on back through, right? Through, up, over, right? Letting the rhythm be the leader of my spine, right? Over. I'm gonna take my legs apart because I want to like get bigger in the world. I don't know about you, but I'm gonna have to have a big week. I'm going to go speak there. We have an organization that actually in the very early days, all their core teachers came to Mind Body Solutions to train, or the core of them. The organization's called Love Your Brain, and they're younger. They're not as long in tooth as Mind Body Solutions. Um, but they asked me, and their 10-year anniversary, so my legs are wide now, so I'm just going back and forth. I'm just opening up my base, so my legs are in a different position. They're having their 10-year anniversary party, fundraising party, and I'm going out to Vermont to speak at it. They're one of the organizations that are really trying to do good work, and they have adopted a lot of our principles. So but I'm gonna have to be big this week, right? I'm gonna have to like pretend I got it all figured out, that I'm not someone that oversleeps and comes into class coming kind of hot, right? So I don't know, is there anything you need to be big for this week? I know Amanda has to be a big caregiver this week. The world just needs the Michael to be big. In fact, maybe we should call him the Michael. We need the Michael to be good. He probably deserves a definite object. He's probably should be the Michael, not just Michael, right? And I'm going off and moving gravity this way. And I'm trying to have it be in the context of rhythm, right? Right. So I can be graceful this week. Because if you're big and you're just a bull, right, you're not as effective. You got to be big and graceful, right? So I'm taking up space and I'm thinking, I need all of my wits, right? And then forward and then back. I like, I like living on the outside of my wheelchair some. Like, so what I mean by this, I mean, obviously getting out of my wheelchair, but when I have my legs wide off the pedals, I feel like I'm living like I'm the snake with the daddy long, not the snake, the spider with the daddy long legs that's enveloping my wheelchair, right? Like it's underneath me, I'm not in it, right? So I'm just taking that as a kind of freedom. It's like, wait, ice around my wheelchair. I don't just live in my wheelchair. I like that. It's better. So now I'm going and letting gravity come through. Instead of always thinking about gravity on your edges, like most of us worry about the holy grail of badness, which would be a fall from out of our wheelchair. And so it's like making gravity be something that I control, that I don't just let stay on my outer edges. Like, oh no, I don't want to fall. Instead, have the shifts be the ones that I choose, right? It's like, wait, I gotta make gravity work for me, right? Not me protect against it. This is wisdom that the spine can have. The mind needs to be shown. The mind will push threats to the edges, right? Put threat to the edges and then try to overcome them. Right? The spine does something else. I'm back to lifting up again. Right? Just like, again, getting there being enough movement, making this a little bit aerobic so you're not used to quite moving this much. And then now we're gonna lean over. Make the arm big. But remember, still the spine. Make the spine make the arm longer and then down. How do you make your spine make your arm longer? Figure it out, right? Don't just reach with your damn limb. Let your neon green spine make your limb longer. Do your yogic awareness to like make that be the case. Of course, you lengthen your spine, but if you want your spine to speak, draw some of your energy towards the midline, and then lengthen your spine and extend beyond your fingertips. You have techniques for letting your spine sink, right? This isn't an accomplishment. This is your spine singing, right? If you are paying attention, it's your spine, stupid, right? Back, right? And I'm gonna go back over again and forward. So I'm trying to take all the points. I'm gonna twist again, but this time I'm gonna get it twist in a smaller space. So instead of making this big space, right? I'm not doing that. I'm coming forward towards the earth. I'm putting my hands. So I'm making so I'm not as expansive on this twist, right? I'm gonna come forward like this and make this twist. Ooh, I kind of like this. I'm gonna do a little rocking here because suddenly I like this feeling. Like I'm spring loading something, right? And then I'm gonna ground and then I'm gonna twist from here. So this twist, you don't want to twist quite as hard because you're in smaller space. The possibility of violence is deeper. So instead of like cranking it, which you could do, make your spine move, right? Don't just leverage your spine into more and then come back out of it. Don't just leverage your spine into more twisting. Forward grab, right? So now I'm going to do remember, I'm trying to let the spine, so I got all the muscles here that want to resist like this side of the spinal twist. I'm not going to fight my body that earned its soreness, right? I'm going to ground, I'm going to go in through my spine, and I'm going to start to twist my spine so the muscles receive the more dynamic energy from my spine. Then I'm going to broaden across my collarbones and chest. So I'm going to make sure, oh, I did it really nice on this one, on this side. This is my body's thanking me now. It resisted. And now it's thanking, right? And then back to center. be in the center. Now I can tell. And so when I'm trying to, if you notice for a while now, I've been trying to get you to, when you're struggling to practice on your own, try to figure out what your body wants next. Right? So I can tell after that twist, my body doesn't need this, but it wants an expression of more length in my spine. So now I'm coming more forward, hitting my sitting bones, lengthening up through the top of my head, broadening across my collarbones. Oh, see that my spine's liking that after that twist. That's a good thing. So I'm going to breathe into that length because, like it or not, sometimes you compress when you actually twist, right? There's a grinding action that occurs, right? So now, if you can do it, right? If you can't, put your elbow on the table, right? Because in a way, the elbow on the table, in some ways, even better than the elbow up here, right? So I want you to lengthen from your armpit to your elbow. Take your shoulder blades down to your sitting bones. And even though I've got my right arm up, I'm going to make sure I'm pressing more awareness through my left sitting bone and my left foot. So bring your elbow in more to midline. So some of you out here, like Susan, I'm looking at you, like bring your elbow in, unless it hurts, right? And extend. And now you're doing opposite actions. You're extending from the armpit up to the elbow, right? While you're dropping the shoulder blade down, hitting down through both sitting bones, and especially the left foot. Let your rib cage breathe, like feel your breath into your rib cage. Good, and then release. Oof. That's the one I gotta be a little careful about. All right, so I'm gonna tap that into, like, it just wanted to spasm a little bit, so I'm going, no, it's okay. Muscles, it's okay. You don't have to protect me right now, right? I can help you receive it, right? All right, let's take the other arm up and then down. I can get discouraged by how different each side is, right? Like this side of my balance is way different, right? The whole pose is different, but it should be the same, right? I could be sad about that. Armpit to the elbow, shoulder blade down, down through the sitting bones. On this side, although I want you to do it press down through your right sitting bone and your right foot, I need to do that, but lengthen the left side at the same time because I collapse into my left. You've got to figure out what your instructions are in your body that are the best. All right. There are general instructions, but our bodies are different, right? And then release. Our bodies are different from side to side. And those are battle scars. It's not the body's fault, right? I'm going to come down on both elbows, right? And I'm going to spend some time having both elbows on the table, finding both sitting bones, right? Taking some time here because I'm going to try to find my bones more now. I know that seems weird. So I intuitively didn't know why I did this, but I put pressure against my forehead, right? Calm down my frontal cortex to be able to find my bones, right? So I'm feeling where my elbows are on the table. I'm feeling where my sitting bones are on the cushion. The pressure is on the skull or on my face, right? Where my heels are. So I'm trying to get feedback that's already happening. These places are already happening. but I'm trying to get my brain to wake up to them so I can pass them to my mind. How come we say I'm tired in my bones? If you get tired in your bones, you got to have nourishment in your bones, right? Sometimes. Why am I saying that right now? Good. And then release. So I've been I'm thinking about osteoporosis with my 89-year-old mom. And obviously, more they say things kind of like blunt object force, right? Blunt force objects like, well, you need more gravity and, more, the bones need to do more work. But when my bones are tired, I want to get in bed, which means the bed releases the ligaments and tendons that are working against the bones. So those don't have to hold as much, right? But how do I rest my bones? How do I make them more dynamic? And I was thinking about osteoporosis because it's like, it's not just that they need to be static to rest your bones or to find nourishment. I don't want to say rest your bones, find nourishment for your bones because rest is a form of nourishment, right? So now I've got my elbows on my table and I've got my hands against my forehead or something touching my forehead. And I'm making this nice little triangle, right? Between what's happening on my forehead and where my elbows are. And I'm going to drop my shoulder blades down, right? And I'm going to feel my sitting bones, got the pressure on my forehead a little bit. Feeling where my sitting bones are, feel where my heels are. I have an easier time accessing bones in my heels than the smaller bones other places, right? So I'm gonna find where my knees are, and I'm gonna make there be gentle, dynamic connections between different places in my body where my bones are, right? So I'm not just gonna rest my bones, I'm gonna find them. When I try to find my bones, and I don't find them like I find leaves on the ground, I don't find them that way. I have to surrender into allowing them voice, but I don't feel them like particularly the way I feel like each finger. My bones are harder. I don't get to control them like that. So I'm trying to have them be simultaneously connected. They already are simultaneously connected. I'm trying to get my mind to allow that to be true. And I'm going to, as I have the different places, my heels, my elbows, the bones on my forehead, on my skull being touched by the bones in my hands. I'm going to lengthen my spine and let the lengthening spine touch all the places that I've signposts I put down for where my bones are touching. And then I'm going to breathe. So I'm trying to get my spine to become dynamic, to feed my mind's awareness of many places where my bones are. And then I'm going to breathe. Good. And then release. Now, I'm curious, was that kind of effortful? Nod your head if that took some effort. A little bit. So do you feel like, can you let that kind of effort when you released it? Can you let that feel like nourishment? Breathe into the nourishment. Breathe into the fullness. I can tell you, I just did all that stuff and I forgot my jaw. So I'm going to move my jaw right now a little bit. You know why I thought that? Because Angelique, I watched you like having your hand on your jaw, and I don't know, either you remembered your jaw or you forgot your jaw. Right? And I went, oh, I forgot mine. So I'm moving my jaw around a little bit. Does anyone really start to move your jaw? She says, mine all clicks and clacks and kind of has its own little version of a heart attack. And then, you know, your teeth are bones, right? I remember this from a shavasana when Joe, my yoga teacher, said early on, "Hey, even relax your gums." What? You got bones in your gums, for God's sakes. I'm hitting on my gums because it's like, hey, there are bones in there. It's not like gooey flesh. It's bones. Damn, I don't. Anyone clench their jaw, compress it all the time? Ah, that's right. Damn it. These bones have been your heroes. Without these things, you're not emulsifying any of your food, for God's sakes. Without these things, you're not eating anything but soup, baby food. Right? Let's just take a moment and say a little prayer of gratitude for our jaws. Ah, damn. All this from feeling the bones in other places in my body.
And
I got bones everywhere. What was that?
think how overworked your jaw is,
Oh my
Matthew.
God. And then can you imagine a talker like me flapping my gums all the time? Yeah. Yeah. Holy cow. Okay, so now I'm going to figure out how to support my jaw. So if I want to support my jaw, where would it come from? Hmm. This is kind of a trick question, right? So if you drop your chest, can you feel how your jaw is just left out on an island? Right? Yeah. If I lift my chest, let it actually, my brain allow to go to my mind that a lifted chest supports my jaw. Oh, now I'm going to lift my chest, feel my sitting bones. What? I'm going to all my bones again? My heels on the plate, and I'm going to start moving my jaw again. Uh-huh. But I'm not going to put my jaw on an island. I'm going to make sure it's part of the team. Hmm. What kind of weird stuff is this? Your jaw is part of a team. You know what's crazy is I allow my jaw to be part of a team. As I move my jaw, I start to feel tingling in other parts of my body. Anyone else start to feel that? Oh, like, huh. I've been sitting on my own potential. Hmm. Now my mind could like castigate myself and say, you've been so mean to your jaw. Wouldn't that be how a lot of us are trained, Dave? Like us Norwegians, us Scandinavians. We'd go, oh my God, I've done it wrong. Or Catholic. It's like, well, maybe not. Maybe. Now, my jaw feels a little loosened up, right? It's still knocking though. All right, I'm gonna lift my sternum, put my lips together, teeth slightly apart. Does anyone feel like kind of more lightness in their jaw? I'm gonna let that lightness invade my brain, right? Can you let things invade your brain? Isn't that kind of what Shavasana is? Your body's kind of been moved and tired and it kind of creeps up and you're supposed to quiet your brain down so and make it passive. So the hum of the rest of you gets into your brain. So before we start doing Shavasana, right? Find your neon spine again, but it doesn't have to be neon anymore. Pick a softer color, move it back and forth. Keep on your radar that your jaw feels different. I'm doing gravity shifts now, so I'm remembering the whole practice today. Right? So I'm making sure my whole body is also imported into the relief I feel in my jaw and import that and let it invade my brain. But in order to have it invade my brain, I need to quiet my mind down. Right? What is this tomfoolery? So I'm gonna now start to feel symmetry and grounding. I'm gonna allow my bones to exhale. Before I go into full Shavasana, I'm gonna lengthen my spine a little bit. I'm gonna let the lightness be hope. Bigness this week for all of us needs to come from a graceful place. I like that. Back to my jaw again. Move it a little bit. And then put my lips together, teeth slightly apart. Keep my spine hopeful as I let it be supported by my chair. One of the things I often feel in Shavasana is that the world was waiting for me. It was already calm, waiting. Feel your breath. Don't change it. Thank your body. Thank your jaw. Start to bring yourself back. Slightly deeper inhalation, slightly longer exhalation. I intuitively find myself slightly rocking my spine, so that's something you want to do as you come back. Noticing rhythm more near the core of your beginning is not a bad idea for a better week. If you notice the whole week in terms of rhythms and stuff, it's smart. So I'm kind of visiting parts of the class right now because I want to take it with me. So as I'm leaving, I'm going like, oh yeah. But I'm letting my body visit. And I'm not trying to remember, we did this and then we did this. Like, look how different that space is than letting it be the memory coming from your body, right? All right, everybody. I hope you have a good week. The plan is for me to be back here next week with another installment of God knows what. Hands together. Namaste.